Hello friends, welcome back to this new episode and today we have with us Professor Abrar Sayyed. He is Assistant Professor in Entrepreneurship and Management area at Ozin University in Istanbul, Turkey. I met him earlier this year and during a brief meeting heard about the heritage walks he used to conduct during his student days at IIM Ahmedabad, and that intrigued me. So here we are trying to know more about him. So welcome Professor Abrar, nice to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Devendra. It was honor and to be invited, and thank you so much inviting me. Uh, Happy to interact with you.
To begin with, Professor Abra, can you tell us about your decision to pursue your PhD? It's a long commitment, we all know. So, what was your motivation to pursue this program?
So after when I joined MBA program at BK School of Business Management, a bunch of young Muslim boys came to me and they wanted to learn maths and English. So I started teaching them and I was so involved with them. So after my MBA, I didn't get any job, so I was doing good in terms of my academics. I had this opportunity to work as academic associate at IIM Ahmedabad. BK School of Business Management was near IIM Ahmedabad. They had collaboration, connection, and all. Lots of PhD students were coming, FPM students for the classes and all. So we had connection. So I started working as academic associate, and during that time I was so involved with this teaching underprivileged students, and I was doing fairly good as an academic associate. So my area business policy, Professor Venkateshwar was the area chair, and he insisted that he found me very very good. So he insisted that I should write cat, and that time I was teaching cat coaching classes also. So and I wanted to work with this young boys and girls, making the impact. So I was so involved. I didn't think about my career, but then Professor Venkateshwan told me that you must write CAT and you join PhD program if you want to be in academics. So that's how he was like very fatherly for me. He and Professor and Mr. V.K. Nair was a program chair that time. They both insisted. In fact, Professor V.K. Nair told me that if you take money from me and then write cat, and if you don't get job, I'll get you a job in one of the colleges in Ahmedabad. So don't worry about that, because coming from very, I was the first graduate from the family, in my both the sides, parent side and mother side, and didn't have any kind of guidance, and nobody was there to kind of give me that assurance that no, if anything goes wrong, they are there to support me, kind of thing. So for me, like, no, it was a big risk, and but I was lucky to meet Professor Venkateshwaran and VKS Nair, Mr. VKS Nair. They helped me, and then I wrote CAT and I got good score, and then I got into my PhD program. So from social work to academics.
And then, when you got into the PhD program at IIM Ahmedabad, you started this initiative called Heritage Walk. So, how did that came up? What's the story behind it? Uh, did that also shape your research work later?
So when I joined IIM Ahmedabad the first year during Ramadan, some of my friends, my classmates, they asked me, can I take them to Old City for food exploration? And being from Ahmedabad and studying in IIM Ahmedabad, I was knowing, and I always had interest of knowing about culture, heritage, craft, and people. Another thing was, when I was growing up, you know that Ahmedabad, Gujarat is very communal place. So being a Muslim, going to a non-Muslim friend's house was and getting acceptance was a difficult task. So what I used to do is, to get acceptance, I was talking to their parents and their grandparents about the culture. And when they're seeing that I'm showing interest in their culture and their religion and their caste and their food habits, they were interested talking to me, kind of thing. And that is kind of way of getting the acceptance in the, and that really helped me to know more about the Hinduism, Jainism, Vaishnavism, and lots of other elements of the Gujarati culture. And that's how I developed the interest in history, culture, craft, people, and all. And that's how, and when I was the similar stage what you are in, so whenever after that, It was when I took them for food walk, food exploration. Then I became the guide for my batch. So when their parents were visiting, their siblings were visiting, their friends were visiting, people used to ask me where they can go for food, where they can go and see what other places they can see in Ahmedabad, what they can, from where they can shop and all. And I was happily doing that. Then some of these friends suggested me, why can't we start a club called Heritage Club? I said it's a good idea, and then we started a club after I finished my comprehensive exam, and it was like very non-serious club kind of thing where we were organizing heritage walks, where we were covering the heritage places, food places, some of the fun places, and then we were faculties, exchange students, normal students, and staff members and their families. They were coming, and then we were exploring things together. It was nothing serious. But then Professor Ashish Nanda came as a director of IIM Ahmedabad. When he became the director of IIM Ahmedabad, he found about this, and he was very, very happy, encouraging us. And then he asked us to do for executive program participants and alumni, and that's how we started doing that. And then I started developing more interest, started reading about it. The one thing what I learned from that, how this exploration help people to be engaged. And that's how I started my courses like Sociology Bazaar or Understanding Indian Bazaar, what I did for IIM Calcutta and IIM Indore. And Sociology Bazaar I was doing, I was offering in Ahmedabad University, that where they were developed because of this, what I have seen, that how people get engaged when they explore new things, and then they learn from this exploration. The more experiential learning teaching started from there. And my work of research work on related ethnography, so I'm interested in understanding bazaar and dynamics of bazaar. And one of the things I wanted to take up but I couldn't do, the business communities of India. These are the interests I developed, and that's how they are connected with my research and teaching.
Did that, I mean, taking students on heritage walks, help you develop your teaching philosophy?
Yeah, I think so when I joined Ahmedabad University, before that, what happened when I was doing heritage walks, and I started doing craft walks and food walks and all this. There was a organization called World Learning Organization, and they were offering this course called International Honors Program, and it was offered to 30 students from Ivy Leagues, mostly Harvard, Stanford, Temple, and they're the Chicago booth. Like they were the students from the undergraduate students from top American universities, and they were studying this course. The focus was on people, urban cities in the 21st centuries, people, politics, and power, something like that. And they were spending 4 months in different cities. So they were starting with New York. They were spending 1 month in New York. Then we're going to Sao Paulo, in South Africa, and Sao Paulo in Brazil. Sorry, and then they were going South Africa, Caps, and then they were coming to Ahmedabad. And I was asked to do heritage walks, and also teaching them some of the other elements of the urban cities like Ahmedabad. So I used to take them to heritage walks one side, but I used to take them to bastis and the slums, and I used to take them to crafts people, and I used to take them to people who are marginalized. And then after this kind of exploration, we used to have a reflection sessions. So then people were sharing the learnings, and then we were actually creating a framework or having this common learning framework kind of thing. And that I found very powerful. And I thought, why we don't do in management? We still are using the 25 pages cases, and because I think they are good, they are very nice. But the problem is now the generation has changed, right? When I was studying, there is no Netflix, and there was no the Facebook was just introduced. And now these children who are the students we are dealing with, they are a different kind of that challenges they are facing. They have lots of distractions, right? So how we keep them engaged? And that's how, when I joined Ahmedabad University, Professor Chandra asked me to design a very multidisciplinary, innovative course. And I suggested that I wanted to teach this bazaar because I found bazaars are very fascinating. and I developed this course called Sociology Bazaar. And then I saw that students are very much engaged. This very, very demanding course where in the morning you have to discuss the readings, then you do the 4 hours of field work, and then you come back and then have reflection sessions, and then you write essays by night 9 p.m. And still students were engaged and they were doing so much hard work. And then I found that this is very, very nice pedagogy to teach, right? And then that's how I found that experiential learning kind of pedagogy could be a good way to engage our management students. Yeah, so that's how I developed this kind of courses.
In fact, let me read out to you what one of your students have to say. He says, Abrar sir's teaching lectures are a perfect example of how modern teaching should be. His content in teaching gives more practical exposure than the theoretical one. Fantastic, isn't it? So, which also means with changing times, we also need to innovate our teaching pedagogy so that the message is not lost. Moving ahead, after completing your PhD and spending some time at Ahmedabad University, you moved on to Turkey. So, how has been your experience there, and what are the cultural differences you have come across between Turkey and India? And what have been your learnings through maybe teaching and in general?
Yeah, so it was interesting experience the first because I went Turkey multiple times before moving to Turkey, and then when you go as tourist, it's a very beautiful country. It's very scenic. People are known for hospitality and other things. The food is great. History and culture. So I wanted to go to a place where I have seen like Ahmedabad has rich history, culture, and so I thought it would be nice to move to Istanbul. We had lots of difficulties, but and challenges related to languages and other language and understanding the bureaucracy and understanding the behavior of the people. But what are my learnings that in terms of teaching? I found that the students and the teacher relationship is very different from what we have in India. We have much more we have stronger connection where the student and teachers have very informal interactions also. The informal interaction is very limited in this context, especially where I'm teaching. And there are students where we are in India, we are more caring, and we assure that students most of the students should studying, and we are insisting on that. Here we give lots of freedom to students to choose, and they are responsible for their academic journey, not the teachers. So that was interesting. That's what I yesterday after my class of doing business in India, I was talking to a couple of Turkish students, and it was interesting because being very friendly and being very supportive. When I started my journey, people were misunderstanding me because here the some of the I started taking feedback. I give small example like after my first course when I offered entrepreneurship to practice, and after third or fourth session, so I mostly take feedback after every fourth session. So I asked them how they find my classes. Are they doing okay? Should I change anything? There was nobody was giving me any feedback. There was nobody. It was completely nobody said anything. And then I developed some bond with some students. Some students wanted to start their startup, and then they visited. And I was being in the campus. I invited them over chai, Indian chai, and then I started talking to them. I said, why they don't speak up? And they said there is no culture. And the feedback is not is lots of time faculties feel offended when you give the feedback. That is a perception, I don't know, or that is what their idea in their mind. I think knowing my colleagues, I feel that they are very open for feedback, but I think there is some cultural element is there where have fear of giving feedback to the faculty. So that is one of the things I learned. Another thing is, and as I said, sometimes they don't know because they always have this fear and hierarchical uh, ways of managing the classes. Sometimes they don't understand a faculty is very friendly and very, very approachable, how to handle, how to deal with that. So sometimes you find that they cross that boundaries and you have to remind them, look, fine, I'm being friendly, I'm approachable, does not mean that you cross the boundaries. And that is what I had very interesting discussion with some of my colleagues, and they give me some of the tips how to manage this kind of situation. But that is what I learned. In terms of administrative part, I feel that compared to India, we don't have many meetings, and we have lots of freedom to do what we want to do. And I think they give you lots of space. I think that I feel that I've talked to lots of my friends in Indian academia, and I found that we have lots of unnecessary meetings, and we spend lots of time in meetings, and we don't give enough space to the faculties to think about their research, to do the research, to teach, and to I think they are almost overburdened with lots of responsibilities.
So, moving ahead, when we speak about anyone's journey, we generally get to hear a lot about the success stories. But failures are integral part of our life too. Especially in researchers' life, we get more rejections than acceptances. So, can you share about some of your failures and what have been your learnings from them?
So I think failure was always been in my life. I started my PhD at the age of 30, so you can understand that. And my career was not very cliche career. I think we recently had, like, few years back, I had a reunion of, like, I met some of my school friends and college friends, and that time I was in my final year of PhD. My stipend was stopped. I was about to get married. So at the age of 35, and all they were settled. They had bungalows, they had cars, the kids were growing, and I was without anything. And that is what and that's what, if you look at the Indian standard, the cliche Indian standard, that I was not fitting in that. But having said this, research as for research, in my research journey, I faced lots of failures. So, like, when I started, after finishing after I finished PhD, I had one SMG R&R, and one a paper was in ETP. It was under review. So based on that, I got lots of. I got shortlisted in ISB Hyderabad. I got shortlisted in Copenhagen Business School, and for faculty interview. But later, what happened? All these papers rejected, and then I saw the phase where nobody was interested in my profile. Nobody was, and that was also frustration. I think my first paper came after 3.5 years of after finishing my PhD. After 3.5 years of that, so I finished my PhD in 2016. I think 2020. Yeah, I think January 2020 I got my first paper accepted in a journal. So you can imagine the kind of frustration I've gone through, and no, because you have all the papers stuck, and then they were rejected from different journals, and then you are not progressing, right? You see that you're almost you finish your 4 years of your PhD after PhD, and then you don't have any good publication, right? But I think what worked for me is, I believe that just continue working. I think and not giving up. So some of the papers where my co-authors stopped working, they lost interest. I continue working, and I continue working with some of the friends. I involved them in that paper, and then I cannot let any paper to go to dustbin. To be very honest, because some of the papers I really worked very hard. They could have gone to a very good journal, but they couldn't go. But I have put my sweat and blood there, so I didn't want them to go to dustbin. So I continue working on them, and then somewhere they go. Some journals they accept. So I think there's a journey, right? And I think you just don't give up and continue working. That is how you can survive in academia. As I said, my journey is not very great. I'm still developing my portfolio, but as I said, I think one thing I learned was, as I said, when I was in IIM Ahmedabad, the orientation was very different. When we were studying, the focus was not much on publication. Our batch was a transition batch. And Professor Nanda came, and he brought this culture of research and then started pressurizing people to do research. We were in almost third year of the our PhD journey. So when I see some of your batchmates are publishing their term papers, and they are, before passing out the PhD program, they are having some good journal publication, and I see from everywhere. Like, I'm very happy for them because they are part of the ecosystem that is developed compared to what we have seen when we were studying. So yeah, but I think, as I said, there's no regret. I think every experience teaches you something. I learned a lot from my failures, and lots of papers lots of methodology I learned. Like my one paper, SMJ paper, got rejected, but then the methodology what I learned from that paper I use for my thesis, right? So lots of things you learn from your failures, but then you can use for your other papers, right? So yeah.
So maybe looking back at your journey, what would be your message to students who are pursuing their PhDs right now?
I think I feel that very very important thing is making right collaboration and working with interesting people. Those might not be having too many publications, but they are happy to help you your research journey. So I think some of the people I met, they were I didn't have much publication with them, but then working with them was great learning for me. So nowadays, you know that lots of PhD students, they get into trap of that they chase the people who have very good publication, and then and it's sometimes very difficult for them to continue working because they get lots of options. So once if your paper gets stuck somewhere, then they lose interest in your work and you and then they choose someone else. So I think better would be focusing on, and for me all my papers and all my collaborators are like so I work with mostly people whom I feel comfortable. They might not have that very very aggressive publication approach, but they are you feel comfortable, you feel happy working with them, and that is very important for me.
Professor Abrar, till now we have heard about your PhD journey. But once we are done with our PhD, we are on our own. So we are free to take any topics of interest which we would like to take up for research. So how have you picked your research topics post your PhD?
So initially, as I said, uh, I was very desperate to publish, and so my initial phases were my initial projects were from my thesis, but also some projects I started during my PhD program with some of the top researchers, and I was just trying to finish that. Once I have like no few papers, and I was in a situation that I was not that desperate. I started projects those were close to my heart, and I feel that so my most of the projects now and for last couple of years are from my social work. So I do lots of social work, I do lots of community work, and all my work I feel that these are the kind of and I get those phenomena I found very very interesting. So then I take up the projects, and I think they are also impactful because not only you tell the stories of these marginalized people, because my research is on marginalized entrepreneurs and marginalized communities. So you are not only telling the stories of them and giving platform to their stories and their challenges, but at the same time you are trying to give back something to them. So so my work on Muslim entrepreneurs, when I started that journey, and then it was very very small project focusing on the issues of the Muslim entrepreneurs in Gujarat, because I was running this association Muslim entrepreneur, a group for helping Muslim entrepreneurs in Gujarat, and then I was hearing the challenges and problems, so I thought why we should not work on that. And from there, later on, what happened, Azim Premji Foundation and Azim Premji University came to know about my project, and then they were ready to give me some funds. So if I scale up the project, and then I started focusing on the entire country. and developing a kind of a research project on what is the challenges of Muslim entrepreneurs in changing socio-political context of India. Lots of Muslim organizations helped me because that was the time of CA and RC, and people were reluctant to give me data. And lots of religious and community organizations, lots of NGOs helped me to collect data. So what I did is I create a report and I give back to them. And they used it for their own. There's lots of think tanks, lots of NGOs use that report for their initiatives. So that is a mechanism that you can develop that will help you to give back to the communities that the groups that you are focusing on. So that is the reason I believe that this kind of approach is very close to my heart. Having said this, I think, as I said, I'm not doing too many projects because the kind of projects I'm doing require lots of uh, work because I do ethnography and I do qualitative research. So you have to go to field, collect data and analyzing and all. So that is the reason I focus more on this kind of projects where they might have a more impact, and they are also related to my social work and community work. So there is a potential to give back to the community.
So, while managing this both practices in the industry and your research work, there must have been some aha moments that inspired you, or maybe on people that inspired you on the way. So can you share some of them here with us, please?
So I not the but individual, but what I was inspired by the business practices of some of the Muslim communities. They are how they are doing the community level business. So especially the Boras and the Chelias and these Pujas. These are the communities. What is fascinating is how they help each other in the business, how they create ecosystem. That is there is no formal system, but how informal system they create for supporting each other, developing each other. So this is something very fascinating for me, and that is something also I am interested in because I wanted to understand that how this mechanism, what they are developing, community level business practices are actually supporting the entrepreneurship, and that is something like I have seen in Code also, that the if you go to Core, you go to Uti, you find almost all the hotels are owned by this northern Kerala people from we call Kozhikode or from Malappuram and all. So that is what something I'm interested in. Why all the hotels are owned by them and why they are successful and how they do business that is making them successful, right? So yeah, so that is very fascinating for me. And I think, as I said, for me, what is inspiring is India. India can offer, because we have so many different communities, religion and caste, and they have very interesting practices, and that should be coming to forefront of management research, and we can leverage a lot from that, and bring in a mainstream management research practices or mainstream management research discussions.
That's quite interesting. So, coming to the end of this podcast, one last question. What do you hope to achieve with your research work in this lifetime?
I think, as I said, my research is focusing on marginalized communities. So I think if I can give the platform to their voices, and especially, and also can also create a mechanism that we can, through research, we create some kind of platform or some kind of mechanism to give back to them the benefit of our research, and maybe in terms of maybe the policy, just create awareness among the policymakers about their issues, to sensitizing the NGOs and the think tanks and the other organizations for their challenges and problems, or maybe empowering them to so then they can solve the problems, right? So maybe these are the ideas I have in mind. So I wanted to do research around that, so then I can empower these communities and these people.
That's fantastic. I hope you get to achieve what you want in your research journey. It was wonderful talking to you, Professor Abrar. Thanks for taking time out and sharing important parts of your life with us. Thanks again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Devendra. It is really an honor and privileged to be part of this podcast. I hope that some people would learn something and then maybe apply. And as I said, the journeys are very different and very personal. But I think thanks for capturing this. Really appreciate this. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
So, friends, this was Professor Abrar. If I have to sum up his research journey, it is one of perseverance and hope. Many first generation learners, especially into higher education, make the cut through their perseverance. What also helps is having someone who believes you can and provides you that much needed guidance that changes your life altogether. So, who has been that one person in your life? I will leave you with this question until we meet next time with one more researcher to listen to their story. Have a good day.